The fluorescent lights of the corner pharmacy buzzed like angry hornets in my skull as I slumped against the counter, my nose a faucet of misery. Just the basics. Man, something to knock this cold out before it knocks me. I muttered to the pharmacist, a guy with wire-rimmed glasses and a name tag that read William. He looked up from his pill bottles, his blue eyes sharp and knowing, like he'd seen 1,000 guys like me drag themselves in from the November chill of Brooklyn streets. Without a word, he slid a small orange vial across the formica, his fingers lingering just a second too long. This'll do more than basics, Ethan. Trust me. It's stronger than what you're asking for. I snatched it, popped the cap in the parking lot of my beat-up Honda, and dry swallowed one before the engine even turned over. What the hell? I thought. What's the worst that could happen? By the time I stumbled into my cramped apartment on Atlantic Avenue, the world had tilted sideways. The pill hit like a freight train wrapped in velvet. First a warm buzz in my chest, then colors bleeding at the edges of my vision, the peeling wallpaper pulsing like it had a heartbeat. I collapsed onto the futon, phone slipping from my hand, and that's when the floodgates cracked open. Memories I'd buried under layers of craft beer and dead-end graphic design gigs surged up. My ex, Jake, laughing in that cruel baritone as he shoved me against the wall of our old loft in Williamsburg, his breath hot with whiskey. You're too soft for this city, Ethan. Too fucking fragile. The words echoed now, amplified by whatever alchemy William had slipped me, turning my cold into a full-body reckoning. I gasped, clutching my sides, sweat beading on my forehead despite the draft from the cracked window. Why now? Why this? The door buzzer screamed like a banshee at 2 a.m., jolting me from the haze. I dragged myself up, the room spinning in lazy loops, and hit the intercom without thinking. Yeah, a voice crackled through, smooth as aged bourbon but edged with urgency. Ethan? It's Christopher, from the gym? You left your wallet in the locker room yesterday. Buzz me up before I freeze my ass off out here. Christopher. The guy with the easy smile and forearms like coiled ropes. The one who'd spotted me on bench presses and cracked jokes about my artistic slouch. I'd nursed a quiet crush for months, stealing glances in the steamed mirrors. But life or my cold, or Jake's ghost had kept me buried. Now, with the pill's fire in my veins, I punched the button like it was salvation. Get in here, I slurred, the words tumbling out thicker than intended. He appeared in the doorway like a fever dream made flesh. 6'2", broad-shouldered in a wool peacoat dusted with sleet, his dark curls damp and wild. Those hazel eyes widened as he took me in, the disheveled hair, the flush creeping up my neck. Jesus, Ethan, you look like hell. Flu got you good. He stepped inside without waiting, wallet extended like a peace offering, but his gaze snagged on the empty vial rolling across the floor. He scooped it up, brow furrowing. What the? This isn't cold meds. Ethan, talk to me. I laughed, a brittle sound that cracked in my throat, and before I could stop it, the dam broke. It's stronger, he said. The pharmacist, William, said it'd fix me. Christopher's face shifted from concern to something fiercer, protective, as he guided me back to the futon, his hand steady on my elbow. The touch ignited sparks under my skin, the pill amplifying every nerve ending until I was acutely aware of the calluses on his palm, the faint scent of sandalwood cologne cutting through my fever. He knelt in front of me, close enough that I could count the freckles across his nose, and pressed the back of his hand to my forehead. You're burning up. And this, he held up the vial, reading the label with a frown. This is some kind of experimental antidepressant trial shit. Off-label for anxiety, but mixed with a cold? Rookie mistake. His voice was low, soothing, but there was an undercurrent of anger, not at me, but at the carelessness. I leaned forward, unbidden, my forehead resting against his shoulder. I just wanted to stop feeling. Everything. The confession slipped out, raw and unfiltered, the pill stripping away my filters like so much chaff. Christopher didn't pull away. Instead, his arms came around me, tentative at first, then firm, like he was anchoring me to the earth. "Hey!" he whispered into my hair. "You don't have to stop feeling. Not with me here." We stayed like that as the drug peaked, time stretching into a hazy confessional. I spilled it all, the breakup with Jake 6 months back, how he'd cheated with that venture capital prick from his firm, leaving me hollowed out in a city that chewed up dreamers like me. Christopher listened, his thumb tracing idle circles on my back, murmuring affirmations that felt like balm on burned skin. "That guy's loss, Ethan. You're the one who sees the world in colors he couldn't touch." By dawn, the pill's grip loosened, leaving me wrung out but strangely lighter. Christopher brewed coffee in my ancient mister. Coffee, black and scalding, and we sat at the wobbly kitchen table, knees brushing under the chipped formica. "You scared the shit out of me last night," he admitted, his hazel eyes locking on mine with an intensity that made my pulse stutter. "But I'm glad I came. Feels like we've been circling this for weeks." I nodded, throat tight, the first rays of sun slanting through the blinds like hesitant fingers. "Yeah. Circling." What started as a wallet drop-off stretched into brunch at the diner downstairs. Greasy eggs and hash browns, laughter bubbling up as Christopher recounted his own disasters. Growing up gay in a conservative Ohio suburb, coming out to parents who loved him but didn't get it, landing in Brooklyn to chase a career in physical therapy. "I fix bodies," he said with a wry grin. "But hearts? That's trickier." Our hands found each other across the table, tentative, then sure, fingers lacing like they'd always known the way. By noon, we were walking the promenade along the East River, wind whipping off the water, his arm slung casual around my shoulders. Felt reckless, this pull toward him, like the pill had unlocked a door I'd nailed shut. But as we paused at a bench overlooking the Manhattan skyline, Christopher turned to me, his expression turning serious. "Ethan, about last night. Whatever William gave you is not just meds. It's a wake-up call. You deserve more than scraping by." William. The name hung there, a shadow in the sunlight. I hadn't thought much beyond the haze, but now curiosity prickled. Who was this pharmacist who'd handed me a grenade disguised as relief? "You know him?" I asked, and Christopher's jaw tightened just a fraction. "Yeah. From the neighborhood. Good guy, but complicated." He didn't elaborate, and I let it drop, too caught in the moment. The way Christopher's laugh lines crinkled when he teased me about my hipster beard phase. That afternoon blurred into evening. A movie at the indie theater on Court Street, his head on my shoulder during the quiet scenes, then back to my place for takeout Thai that we ate cross-legged on the floor. The kiss happened organically, sparked by a shared glance over spicy basil chicken, his lips soft and insistent, tasting of lime and promise. My body responded like it remembered touch, hands roaming under his shirt to map the ridges of muscle earned from years of lifting others up. As we tangled on the futon, clothes shedding like old skin, the world narrowed to breaths and whispers. "I've wanted this," Christopher confessed against my neck, his voice rough with need. Since that first awkward high-five in the gym, I arched into him, the remnants of the pill still humming faintly, turning sensation into symphony. It was messy, fervent, two men rediscovering vulnerability in the dim glow of a single lamp. Afterward, spent and sated, we lay entwined, his heartbeat syncing with mine like a metronome. "Stay," I murmured, and he did, until morning light coaxed us awake with coffee and tentative plans. A weekend hike in the Palisades. Maybe. Life, for the first time in months, felt bendable, full of edges I wanted to explore with him. But seeds of discord lurked, unnoticed in the afterglow. 2 days later, nursing the tail end of my cold with actual Dayquil, I swung by the pharmacy to thank William, or chew him out, depending on the vibe. The bell jingled as I entered, the air thick with the scent of rubbing alcohol and cheap air freshener. William was behind the counter, restocking shelves, his lean frame moving with quiet efficiency. Close, he was striking mid-30s, with a jawline that could cut glass and those piercing blue eyes framed by lashes too long for a guy. "Ethan," he said, spotting me, a smile flickering that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Feeling better? Told you it'd pack a punch." I leaned on the counter, arms crossed. "Yeah, about that experimental shit? Not cool, man. But kinda saved me. Met someone because of it." His expression shifted, a shadow crossing his features. Christopher, the way he said the name, familiar, laced with something bittersweet, sent a chill down my spine. Before I could probe, the back door swung open, and a delivery guy bustled in with crates. William straightened. The moment shuddered. "Glad it worked out. Come back if you need a refill." I left with a nod, but unease gnawed at me, a loose thread in the fabric of this new beginning. That night, as Christopher and I met for drinks at a dive bar in Cobble Hill, I mentioned it offhand. "Ran into your pharmacist buddy today." He seemed off. Christopher's beer paused midway to his lips, his easy demeanor cracking just a hair. "William? Yeah. He's an old friend." Water under the bridge, but his eyes darted away, and for the first time, I wondered what bridges had burned. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of stolen moments and deepening roots, the kind of romance that sneaks up on you like spring in a city buried under snow. Christopher and I fell into a rhythm. Mornings tangled in my sheets, his alarm pulling us into jogs along Prospect Park, where we'd collapse on the grass, breathless and grinning, sharing earbuds with playlists that mixed Springsteen anthems with indie folk that made my chest ache with hope. He was steady in ways I hadn't known I craved, the counterpoint to my scattershot creativity, sketching logos for startups while he mapped out rehab plans for athletes nursing ACL tears. "You're my anchor," I told him one evening, as we wandered the Brooklyn flea market, his hand warm in mine amid stalls of vintage vinyl and handmade leather goods. He squeezed, pulling me close enough to murmur, "And you're the spark, Ethan," lighting up all the dark corners. But William lingered like a ghost in the periphery, his pharmacy an unavoidable landmark on my route to the subway. I'd catch glimpses of him through the window, measuring prescriptions with surgical precision, chatting with elderly ladies about blood pressure meds, always with that enigmatic half-smile. Curiosity morphed into compulsion. One rainy Tuesday, I ducked in under the pretense of picking up vitamins. The store was quiet, save for the hum of the cooler and the patter of drops against the plate glass. "Back so soon?" William quipped, not looking up from the computer. I shrugged, feigning nonchalance. "Figured I owed you a proper thanks." "That pill. It cracked me open." He met my gaze then, leaning back against the shelves, arms crossed over his white coat. "Cracked open's better than sealed shut. But be careful. Sometimes what's inside isn't pretty." There was a weight to his words, a subtext that pulled at me. "You and Christopher," I ventured, heart thudding. "How'd you meet?" William's laugh was soft, tinged with rust. "Gym rats. Same as you two. Back when he was still figuring out his footing in the city. We dated. Briefly, the admission landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading. Dated. Briefly. But the way his eyes softened, tracing some invisible path, suggested it was anything but brief in memory. "It didn't stick," he added quickly, busying himself with a label gun. "He's better with artists than cynics like me." I left with my vitamins and a knot in my gut, the rain soaking through my jacket as I texted Christopher. "Dinner tonight? Need to talk." His reply was instant. "Always. Pick you up at 7. We ended up at this hole-in-the-wall Italian joint in Carroll Gardens, the kind with checkered tablecloths and candles flickering in Chianti bottles, the air heavy with garlic and red wine. Christopher arrived windswept from a client session, his polo stretched taut over his chest. And for a moment, the knot loosened as he kissed me hello, deep and unhurried. "Over veal parmigiana," I broached it gently. "William mentioned you too." "Had history." His fork paused, sauce dripping forgotten onto his plate. The candlelight carved shadows across his face, turning vulnerability into something stark. "Yeah," he sighed, setting down the utensil. "It was a couple years back. Intense, but messy. He was going through some family stuff, Dad's cancer diagnosis, and I was fresh off a bad breakup. We crashed into each other, hard. But it burned out fast." "Why?" I poked at my pasta, the confession sticking like overcooked noodles. "Just surprised. He seems like he'd be your type, smart, brooding." Christopher reached across the table, his fingers enveloping mine, calloused and sure. "He was, for a minute. But you, Ethan, you're the one who stays. The one who makes me want to build something real." His words wrapped around me like a blanket, chasing the chill. And by dessert, tiramisu shared from the same spoon, the unease had dulled to a hum. We walked home hand in hand, the streets slick with reflected neon, pausing under a bodega awning to kiss against the bricks until the owner yelled good-naturedly to get a room. That night, love unfolded slow and deliberate, his body a map I traced with lips and whispers, erasing doubts with every gasp. Yet the hum persisted, growing into a buzz as winter tightened its grip on Brooklyn. Christopher's schedule ramped up with holiday clients, runners prepping for the marathon, desk jockeys chasing New Year's resolutions, and our nights stretched thin. I'd find myself at the pharmacy more often, drawn by William's quiet charisma, the way he'd slip me samples of herbal teas or recommend books on grief that mirrored my own unspoken losses. My mom, gone too young to Alzheimer's when I was 20, leaving me adrift in a world that demanded reinvention. "You're grieving more than a cold, Ethan," he'd say one afternoon, handing over a steaming cup of chamomile across the counter. That pill was a shortcut, but healing's a long walk. His blue eyes held mine, unflinching, and for a heartbeat, the air crackled with unspoken invitation. I pulled back, mumbling thanks, but the seed was planted, curiosity blooming into something dangerously like connection. It culminated on a snow-dusted December evening. Christopher delayed by a late session, leaving me alone with a sketchpad and a bottle of Pinot. The buzzer sounded, and I assumed it was delivery, Chinese from the place on Smith Street. But it was William, coat dusted white, holding a paper bag. Heard Christopher's running behind. Thought you might need company, and real cold remedies this time. His smile was sheepish, disarming, and against my better judgment, I let him in. We ended up on the floor with takeout cartons and my portfolio spread between us, William poring over my designs with genuine interest. This one's killer, the negative space screams isolation, but there's hope in the lines. His praise landed warm, and when our knees brushed, neither of us moved away. The wine flowed, loosening tongues. He confessed his own coming-out story, disowned by a strict Catholic family in Boston, rebuilding in New York with nothing but student loans and spite. I dispense fixes for everyone else, he said, voice low, but mine, still in the bottle. The moment stretched, charged, until the door flew open. Christopher, snow-capped and exuberant, arms laden with poinsettias from a client gift. Babe, traffic was. He froze in the doorway, eyes flicking from me to William, the air thickening like curdled milk. William stood smoothly, brushing crumbs from his jeans. Just dropping off meds. Night, Ethan. He nodded to Christopher, a flicker of old familiarity passing between them, then vanished into the flurry outside. Christopher set the flowers down, his jaw set. What the hell was that? I stammered explanations, harmless, unexpected, but the damage was done, trust fracturing like thin ice. We argued in hushed tones, his voice rising in accusation. He's always circling, Ethan. Like a shark smelling blood. I fired back, defensive. You're the one with history. Maybe you're projecting. He stormed out into the night, the door slamming like a gunshot, leaving me with wilted takeout and a heart-pounding regret. Days blurred into a cold standoff, texts unanswered, gym visits avoided. I threw myself into work, churning out freelance gigs until my eyes burned. But William's words echoed, healing's a long walk. On impulse, I texted him, coffee? Need perspective. We met at a cafe in Park Slope, the kind with mismatched mugs and chalkboard menus, steam fogging the windows against the sleet. He arrived bundled in a scarf, looking every bit the intellectual heartthrob, and over lattes, I unloaded the fight. Christopher thinks you're interested. William's gaze dropped to his cup, fingers tracing the rim. He's not wrong. Not entirely. The admission hung there, bold and unapologetic. I see you, Ethan, the way you carry pain like a sketch, half erased but vivid. And yet, pulls at me. But you're his. I respect that. His honesty disarmed me, stirring a confusing swirl of flattery and guilt. We parted with a hug that lingered, his chin brushing my temple, and I walked home through the whitening streets, mind a blizzard of what-ifs. Christopher was waiting on my stoop when I arrived, cheeks ruddy from the cold, eyes red-rimmed. I fucked up, he said simply, pulling me into an embrace that smelled of pine and apology. Jealousy's a bitch. Forgive me? Inside, over hot toddies, We rebuilt brick by brick, kisses turning fervent, bodies reconnecting in the firelight glow from the radiator. "I love you," he whispered afterward, the words a vow against the gathering storm. I echoed them, meaning it, but in the quiet aftermath, William's confession whispered like wind through cracks. As Christmas approached, the city decked in lights and garland, we tried to reclaim normalcy, trimming a scavenged tree in my living room, stringing popcorn like kids, Christopher's laughter booming as tinsel tangled in his curls. But tension simmered beneath the cheer, glances lingering too long when William's name surfaced, silences stretching during drives to his family's upstate cabin. There, amid pine-scented air and crackling fires, we made love by the hearth, his hands worshipping every inch. But even then, doubt crept in like frost on the windows. "Promise me," I murmured into his chest. "No more ghosts." He tilted my chin up, hazel eyes solemn. "Just us, Ethan. Always." Yet as fireworks lit the New Year sky from a distant town square, I couldn't shake the feeling that the past was a fuse, burning slow toward explosion. January hit Brooklyn like a grudge, gray skies leaching color from the brownstones, turning our fragile peace into a tightrope walk. Christopher threw himself into the new year with ferocity, booking clients till his calendar bled red, dragging me to couples yoga where we'd laugh through downward dogs, his body pressed warm against mine in child's pose. "This is us conquering," he'd say, sweat slick and triumphant, and I'd believe it, losing myself in the curve of his smile, the way his fingers intertwined with mine during post-class smoothies at the juice bar. We talked big, moving in together, maybe a place in Bed-Stuy with a view of the bridge, trips to Provincetown in summer, where we'd hold hands on the dunes without a second glance. Love, in those stolen pockets, felt invincible, a bulwark against the city's grind. But William was the chink in the armor, his presence a persistent itch. I'd spot him at the farmer's market on Grand Army Plaza, sampling artisanal cheeses with that thoughtful tilt of his head, or jogging the park paths in compression gear that hugged his runner's build. Once, during a rare solo coffee run, our paths crossed at the bagel shop, him with a everything bagel, me with a plain. "Fancy meeting you here," he teased, blue eyes twinkling over his espresso. We chatted about nothing, whether the latest subway delays, until he leaned in, voice dropping. "You look happy, Ethan." Really happy. There was no bitterness, just a quiet ache that mirrored my own hidden fractures. I nodded, throat tight. "Trying to be." He clapped my shoulder, the touch brotherly, then melted into the crowd. But the encounter lingered, a Polaroid developing in my mind, sharpening edges I'd blurred. The real fracture came mid-February, Valentine's Day looming like a pink and red guillotine. Christopher planned a surprise dinner at this rooftop spot in Dumbo, overlooking the glittering harbor, reservations I'd forgotten about because he'd handled it all. I arrived early, nerves jangling from a brutal deadline, only to find him already there, tie loosened, a bottle of Cabernet breathing on the table. His kiss was fire and familiarity, pulling me into the velvet booth. "To us," he toasted, clinking glasses, and for an hour, it was magic oysters on the half-shell. His foot hooked around my ankle under the table, stories of future adventures laced with inside jokes. Then his phone buzzed, insistent, and he glanced at it, face paling. "Work emergency," he muttered, but didn't silence it. Another buzz, and he excused himself to the railing, voice low and urgent. I nursed my wine, unease coiling, until curiosity won. Peeking at the screen when he stepped away for the restroom, don't be late tonight. Miss you already. W. The words seared like acid. W. William. Heart slamming. I scrolled up. Fragments of a thread. Flirty emojis. Can't wait to feel you again. The world tilted. Betrayal crashing over me like a rogue wave. When Christopher returned, beaming with dessert menus, I shoved the phone at him. Explain. His color drained, hazel eyes widening in horror. Ethan, it's not. But the evidence was damning. Texts spanning weeks, slipping through cracks I'd ignored. We were done ages ago, he pleaded, voice cracking. It was a weak moment after that fight. He reached out. I responded. But it's over. Swear to God. Rage and grief warred in my chest, hot and hollow. Over? While we're building a life. While I'm spilling my guts to you. I stormed out into the biting wind, the city lights mocking me with their indifferent sparkle. He followed, grabbing my arm at the elevator. Ethan, please. I love you. This was stupid. A mistake. Tears stung, freezing on my lashes as I wrenched free. Mistake or pattern? With him? With Jake? Am I just the intermission? The doors dinged shut on his anguished face, leaving me plummeting alone. I wandered the streets for hours, sleet turning to snow, numb feet carrying me to the one place that felt like confession. The pharmacy, dark and shuttered at this hour. I slumped against the door, fists pounding until a light flicked on inside. William appeared, disheveled in sweats and a faded Harvard tee, hair tousled from sleep. Ethan? What they come in. You're soaked. He bundled me into the back room, a cramped office smelling of ink and chamomile, wrapping me in a scratchy blanket from a shelf. Words tumbled out in sobs, the texts, the rooftop, the shattering of trust. William listened, face etched with sorrow, then pulled me into a hug that broke something open. I'm so sorry, he whispered, his breath warm against my temple. I never meant to. I thought it was closure. For both of us. The admission hung heavy. Both of us. Revealing the tangled web. Christopher's indiscretion not a one-off, but a relapse into old flames. William complicit in the flicker. We talked till dawn. The pharmacy a confessional booth under buzzing fluorescence. He confessed his own wounds, their breakup not just family stress, but Christopher's wandering eye, a pattern of seeking novelty over depth. He's magnetic, William said, handing me a mug of instant coffee, but unreliable. I learned the hard way. Empathy softened my anger toward him, forging an unlikely alliance in shared hurt. By sunrise, exhaustion claimed us. I dozed on the cot in his break room, waking to the scent of fresh bagels and his quiet offer. Stay as long as you need. No strings. I didn't take him up on it fully, but the gesture anchored me, a lifeline in the storm. The fallout with Christopher was volcanic. He bombarded me with calls, voicemails thick with desperation. I fucked up beyond words. Let me make it right. I ignored them, holing up in my apartment, sketching feverishly, dark abstracts of fractured hearts and shadowed figures, selling a few to a gallery contact for quick cash. Friends rallied. My roommate from college, now a barista in Queens, dragged me to drag bingo nights for forced laughs. My sister, Visiting from Philly, baked pies and dispense tough love. Dump the cheater, she said flatly, and find the one who sees your whole mess and stays. Her words echoed William's, stirring a confusing pull. He checked in via text. You okay? Bagels tomorrow. Platonic. Steady. Without the pressure Christopher wielded like a charm offensive. A week in, Christopher cornered me outside the gym, rain lashing us both. Ethan, talk to me. Please. Soaked and spent, I relented, meeting him at a neutral diner, the kind with Naugahyde booths and bottomless Joe. He looked wrecked, stubble shadowing his jaw, eyes hollowed. It was 2 times, he admitted, voice breaking. Stupid, meaningless. I was scared of committing, of failing you like I failed him. William. The triangle sharpened, jealousy twisting into pity. You don't get to fail me before we even try, I said, voice steady despite the ache. This isn't fixable overnight. He nodded, tears mingling with rain on the window. Then let me earn it back. Therapy, transparency, whatever it takes. I agreed to try, not from weakness, but a stubborn spark of the love we'd kindled. We started slow. Coffee dates dissecting the betrayal, his phone an open book, sessions with a couples counselor in a walk-up on Flatbush who chain-smoked menthols between insights. Progress crept in, nights where we'd cook together, bumping hips in the tiny kitchen, laughter edging out silence. But trust was a house of cards, every gust threatening collapse. William faded to the background, our bagel meetups tapering to occasional waves across the street. Yet his steadiness lingered, a quiet counterpoint to Christopher's fervent redemption arc. Spring teased with crocuses pushing through concrete, mirroring our tentative thaw. We planned a getaway, a cabin in the Catskills, no cell service, just us and the woods. The drive-up was charged, hands clasped over the gearshift, radio crooning Bon Iver. At the lodge, amid whispering pines, we shed layers literal and figurative. Bonfires where he confessed boyhood fears of not being man enough. My sketches spread on the porch as he traced their lines with reverent fingers. Love reignited, fierce and forgiving, bodies entwining under quilts as rain drummed the tin roof. I choose you, he vowed in the afterglow, and for a breath, I believed it. Back in the city, though, the idol cracked. A late-night text from William, emergency. Can you come? Pulled me to the pharmacy at 3 a.m. He was pale, hands shaking as he measured insulin for a frantic customer, his father's old illness echoing in his features. Panic attack, he gasped after, slumping against the counter. I held him then, friend to friend, until the storm passed, his head on my shoulder. Thanks for being the steady one, he murmured. The door chimed, Christopher, eyes wild, having tracked my phone. What the fuck? Ethan? The accusation flew, reigniting the blaze. William slipped away, leaving us to combust in the aisle of cough drops and candy bars. The alley behind the pharmacy became our battlefield, rain turning the pavement to a mirror of smeared lights, reflecting the chaos we'd wrought. Christopher's face twisted in fury, fists clenched at his sides. Of all places, his turf? At this hour, I shouted back over the downpour, water streaming down my face like tears I refused to shed. He needed a friend. Chris, not everything's a goddamn conspiracy. But the words rang hollow even to me. The lateness of the hour, the intimacy of the hold, fueling his paranoia. Friend? Bullshit. You're always running to him. Ever since that pill, the reference stung, twisting back to that fateful night, the catalyst we'd both romanticized and resented. He stormed off into the night, taillights vanishing like a bad dream, leaving me shivering and spent. Dawn found me at home, scrolling through voicemails, his laced with regret, mine unsent drafts of rage. William texted an apology. Sorry for the drama. Oh, you. I didn't reply, curling into the futon that still smelled of Christopher's cologne, the weight of triangulation crushing my chest. Days stretched into a limbo of avoidance. Gym memberships frozen, mutual friends tiptoeing around loyalties. I dove into work, landing a contract for a queer-lit mag's rebrand. Vibrant covers pulsing with color, a metaphor for the vibrancy I clung to amid the gray. Sketches poured out, lovers in silhouette against stormy skies, hands reaching but not quite touching, echoing my turmoil. Christopher broke the silence with a handwritten letter slipped under my door, pages of scrawled confession, ink smudged like his resolve. I see now how I've poisoned us with my fears. William's the symptom, not the cause. Let me be better for you. It cracked my defenses. We met at the counselor's again, her office a sanctuary of potted ferns and empathy. Sessions unearthed roots. His fear of abandonment from a dad's early exit, my pattern of chasing unavailable hearts from Jake's echo. Betrayal's a cycle, she said, but awareness breaks it. We recommitted, fragile as new buds, date nights at the planetarium, where we'd lie back under projected stars, his arm a steady anchor. Intimacy returned, tentative then torrid, his touches apologetic, mine forgiving, bodies a language of amends. William, sensing the shift, withdrew gracefully, a nod and smile in passing, no more midnight summons. Gratitude mixed with guilt. He'd become the villain in our narrative, but I knew better, the real antagonist was our unhealed scars. Spring deepened, dogwoods blooming pink along the avenues, and we bloomed too. A joint lease signed for a one-bedroom in Crown Heights, boxes packed with equal parts excitement and dread. Moving day was chaos, sweat and swearing as we hauled furniture up creaky stairs, Christopher flexing dramatically to make me laugh, collapsing into pizza on the bare floor amid bubble wrap confetti. That night, christening the space, felt like a vow, slow, sacred, his eyes locked on mine as if memorizing every gasp. This is home, he breathed, and I clung to it, willing belief. But summer simmered with undercurrents, heat waves turning the city into a pressure cooker. Christopher's practice boomed, clients flocking for Beachbody preps, leaving evenings to me alone in our sun-drenched apartment. I'd wander to the roof, sketchpad in hand, capturing the skyline's jagged poetry, the Empire State piercing clouds like a defiant spire. One sweltering July afternoon, a knock echoed. William, in civvies, holding a six-pack and a tentative grin. Heard you landed the mag gig. Congrats, thought we'd celebrate. Neutral ground. I hesitated, but the rooftop beckoned, and up we went, bottles sweating in the haze. Conversation flowed easy. His latest trial on migraine meds, my illustrations gaining buzz in queer art circles. Proud of you, he said, clinking bottles, the sun gilding his features. You've got that rare thing, heart on the page. The afternoon stretched lazy, stories turning personal. His reconciliation with a sibling after years of rift, my dreams of exhibiting in Chelsea galleries. Proximity bred comfort, shoulders brushing as we leaned on the ledge, overlooking the sprawl. "You ever think about us?" he asked softly, gaze on the horizon. My heart stuttered. Honesty was the only path. "Sometimes. But Chris, he's fighting for this. For me." William nodded. "No pressure. Just a quiet, fair. Just know you're worth the fight." He left as the sun dipped, a hug lingering like ozone before a storm, and I texted Christopher the truth. William stopped by. Cleared the air. "All good." His reply was quick. "Trust you. Love you." Relief washed over, but the encounter stirred sediment. Questions about what us could mean. August brought the climax, unbidden and brutal. Christopher's birthday fell on a scorcher, and I planned meticulously. A surprise party at our place, invites to gym buddies and art friends, a cake from the patisserie on Nostrand with aging like fine whiskey in buttercream. Guests milled, laughter rising with craft IPAs. When William arrived, uninvited, but with a wrapped gift and sheepish apology. Heard through the grapevine. Couldn't not come. Tension crackled, but Christopher played host, clapping his back with forced bonhomie. The night peaked in toasts and tipsy dances to Motown on the Bluetooth, my hand in Christopher's as we swayed in the kitchen. Then, disaster. A guest's spilled beer led to a slip, William catching Christopher's arm to steady him, their faces inches apart, eyes locking in a moment too charged, too reminiscent. I saw it, the spark, the pull, history igniting like dry tinder. Christopher pulled away, but the damage bloomed, whispers among guests, my stomach churning as I excused myself to the fire escape. He followed, face ashen. "Ethan." "Nothing." But I cut him off. Voice steel. "Don't." I saw it. The way you look at him, like he's the one you can't quit. Tears welled, hot and furious. "Am I the placeholder? The safe bet?" He crumpled, kneeling on the grating, hands gripping my knees. "No. God, no. It's you. Always you. He's the mistake I keep making because he reminds me of who I was before I knew better." The confession gutted me. Before me. Before us. William knocked softly from inside, sensing the rift, and slipped away unseen. The party fizzled, guests drifting like smoke, leaving us to the wreckage. We argued till midnight, voices raw, unpacking the betrayal's layers. His unresolved pull to William, my fear of being second choice. "I choose you every day," he sobbed, but words rang empty against evidence. Dawn broke with a decision, space, not separation. He crashed at a buddy's. I rattled around the apartment, ghosts in every corner. William reached out, heard it went south. "Here if you need." I did, meeting him at a quiet bar in Greenpoint, divey with peanut shells and jukebox blues. Over whiskeys, I vented, his listening a balm. "You're stronger than this cycle," he said, hand covering mine briefly. "Deserve someone who chooses you first." The touch lingered, electric, and in a haze of hurt, I leaned in, lips meeting in a kiss that tasted of salt and surrender. Regret hit like hangover, but so did clarity. It wasn't revenge, but revelation. William pulled back gently. "Not like this. Not while you're broken." We parted as friends. The line uncrossed, but the act cracked my resolve with Christopher. When we reconvened at the counselor's, I laid it bare. Not the kiss, but the temptation, the exhaustion. I can't keep rebuilding on sand. His face shattered, understanding dawning. Then, let me go. Be free. The words were a mercy killing, our love a beautiful casualty of flaws unhealed. We hugged goodbye in the office, his tears on my shoulder, mine on his. Thank you, I whispered, for the spark. He nodded, broken but whole. Light the world, Ethan. Autumn leaves turned the parks to fire, mirroring my rebirth. Single, I thrived, gallery show in Soho, illustrations in national mags, nights out with a queer collective that felt like tribe. William became a fixture, platonic coffees evolving to dinners, his steadiness a quiet courtship. No rush, just presence, the way he'd critique my work with insight, or show up with soup when deadlines drained me. You're healing, he observed one crisp October evening, as we strolled the High Line, railside gardens blooming defiant. I slipped my hand into his. With you. The kiss that followed was soft, earned, promise without pressure. Christopher faded to occasional texts. Proud of your show. Miss you. A chapter closed with grace. Betrayal's scar remained, a reminder of fragility, but also resilience. In William's arms, under a harvest moon gilding the skyline, I found not perfection, but partnership, two men, scarred and seen, choosing depth over dazzle. Human, messy, achingly real. Winter circled back, but this time it wrapped gentle, snowflakes drifting like confetti over a city reborn in holiday hush. William and I settled into a rhythm unhurried as the seasons. Mornings with his head on my pillow, blue eyes blinking awake to the aroma of his French press. Evenings debating pharmacology ethics over pad thai from the spot on Fulton. He was a quiet force, his cynicism tempered by a core of fierce loyalty, dispensing not just meds but wisdom in measured doses. Love's not a cure-all, he'd say, stirring sugar into his tea, but it's the best damn placebo. I'd laugh, tracing the veins on his forearm, marveling at how his touch grounded me, turning chaos to canvas. My career ignited. The mag rebrand led to a book deal, illustrating a graphic novel on queer icons, Harvey Milk's defiant gaze, Marsha P. Johnson's buoyant spirit, pages alive with color and courage. William attended the launch in a village bookstore, crisp shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his pride a warm glow as strangers praised my work. Told you, heart on the page, he murmured later, over champagne flutes, his hand at the small of my back. That night, in our shared apartment, his minimalist space in Borum Hill, shelves of journals and pill bottles mingling with my art supplies, we celebrated slow, bodies a dialogue of gratitude, his whispers in the dark affirming every line I'd drawn. Echoes of the past surfaced, unbidden but not unwelcome. Christopher crossed paths with us at a holiday market in Industry City. Bundled in a parka, a new guy on his arm, tall, bookish, with a shy smile. Our eyes met across the stalls of wreaths and mulled wine. A nod exchanged, no bitterness. Looks happy, William observed later, as we sipped cocoa by the waterfront. I squeezed his hand. So do we. Closure came full circle one blustery January eve. A package arrived at the pharmacy, addressed to me care of William. Inside, Christopher's old sketchbook, pages I'd filled during our fevered start, doodles of his profile and our intertwined hands. A note, you left this behind. Keep creating. See. I tucked it away, not as relic, but release. Spring unfurled with promise. Cherry blossoms carpeting the paths where William and I ran, breaths sinking in the dawn light. Conflicts arose, human as ever, his long shifts clashing with my deadlines, arguments over closet space or whose turn it was for dishes, but we navigated with tools honed from scars, honest talks over takeout, apologies laced with humor. You're stuck with my messy palates, I'd tease after a spat, and he'd pull me close, murmuring, wouldn't trade 'em for sterile white. Romance bloomed in gestures small and grand. Surprise tickets to a Broadway revival of Angels in America. His arm around me as Pryor's words cut deep. Lazy Sundays in bed, reading aloud from my novel drafts. His voice giving life to imagined lovers. The humanistic core of it all crystallized one humid June night. At a pride rally in Washington Square Park, rainbows waving, chants rising like prayer. William and I stood shoulder to shoulder amid the throng, his hand in mine unashamed, as speakers shared stories of struggle and triumph. A young activist, voice cracking with emotion, spoke of betrayal's sting and love's redemption. We're not defined by our falls, but by who lifts us after. Tears pricked, William's thumb brushing my knuckles, a silent echo of our journey, from that illicit pill to this unyielding bond. We danced later in the after-party crush, bodies swaying to pulsing beats, sweat and joy mingling, his lips on my neck a vow against the world's noise. Betrayal's shadow never fully vanished. It taught vigilance, the art of choosing daily. With William, choice felt effortless, his steadiness a mirror to my fire, our flaws interlocking like puzzle pieces. Summer solstice found us on a rooftop, city sprawled below, stars pricking the haze. That night, I said, head on his chest. The pill, what were you thinking? Handing it over, he chuckled, low and rueful. Gut instinct. You looked like a man at the edge, needing a push. Never dreamed it'd lead here. I tilted up, kissing him slow. Best mistake. As leaves turned once more, we planned ahead, not grand gestures, but roots. A joint trip to Boston, mending his family ties, my exhibit in LA, him by my side for the glamour and grit. Life's drama persisted, the city's pulse quickening with elections and unrest, personal tempests in freelance droughts or his trial setbacks, but we weathered as a unit, humanistic in our imperfection. Love, we learned, wasn't absence of conflict, but presence through it. The hand held in silence, the laugh shared over burnt toast, the quiet I see you in eyes across a room. One crisp November dawn, exactly a year from that fateful pharmacy visit, I woke to William's note on the pillow, coffee's on. Walk the bridge? We bundled against the chill, steps falling in sync over the Brooklyn span, Manhattan's towers rising like dreams deferred then claimed. Halfway across, wind whipping our scarves, he stopped, pulling a small box from his pocket. Not a ring, but a vial, empty and engraved, to stronger beginnings. No more shortcuts, he said, voice thick. Just us, every day. I laughed through tears, slipping it into my chain. Deal, the city hummed below, a tapestry of lights and lives. Our story one thread in its vast weave, dramatic, emotional, laced with romance's ache and humanity's grace. From a single pill's shock to this steady flame, we'd forged something enduring, not perfect, but profoundly ours. And in that, the deepest happily ever after, not an end, but a horizon wide with possibility.